they're one of the great designers of our time, and I'm excited about this presentation, even though I know about the deck and I've seen it, because I'm excited to hear about the process and all the things that go into it. But I'd like you to give us a lot of online applause for UUSI. And representing UUSI tonight is Peter Dunham. Peter?
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having us on, although Lene was not able to make it, unfortunately, but I will be representing UUSI tonight.
Excellent.
And I just wanted to thank you again, thank everyone for asking us to do the deck for the convention this year. It was a real honor, and we love the way it came out, and hope everyone else does too. And yeah, it's just great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation to do the deck. We're really honored, and we're really excited about working with you, and we can't wait to see. Well, I know everybody wants to see this deck, but tell us a little bit more about your projects and where you guys came from and how you got involved with playing cards at all.
Okay. So, yeah, Lene and I have been doing what we've been doing, art and design, for probably about 30 years now. And we spent most of our time in Chicago. We just recently moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We've been up here for about 3 years now. So the majority of our work that we've done has been our studio in Chicago. And we started out as artists and designers that mainly worked with private clients and corporate clients, doing commission work, commission jobs. We did this for some time, and these are just showing some articles that were on our company when we first started it, which UUSI, we first started in 2010. So we finally decided to create a company of our own instead of working individually, and where we could concept, design, and produce all the work ourselves, and then offer it through basically just through a website. And so we've been doing that since 2010. Some more, you know, we got really good press at first when we launched UUSI. So, and a lot of that had to do with our background with the work we had done before, but it really helped us get a good start. And here's a little more, some of my work here. We mainly designed and produced art objects and functional objects for the home that we offered in limited edition. Some people may, that know our Kickstarters may recognize these boxes that led into a lot of the casework on Kickstarter. Here's some animal sets we designed out of wood. There's a shot of that. It's a knife holder I designed that did pretty well at the time. So
that's awesome.
We really moved into UUSI with, thanks, with that background that we brought to that, which led us to a project we always wanted to do, and that was design a custom playing card deck. We have quite an extensive collection of vintage objects that have always inspired us, and one of the things in our collection was playing card decks. I've been collecting them for years, pretty old ones for the most part, and we just thought it'd be really cool to do a playing card deck. And so right about the time we decided that, we came across Kickstarter at the same time. It'd been out for a little bit, but it was fairly new. And so we combined the two together and produced the Blue Blood deck, which was our first playing card deck we designed. A huge surprise to us was we had no idea there was a custom playing card market. Magicians, flourishers, the whole thing. We had absolutely no idea. So we put the project on Kickstarter, and the next thing we know, we had no idea how it would do. And next thing we know, there's this huge market. And I think at that time, it was really starting to explode. And that would have been, I believe, Blue Blood was, I want to say 2012. People like Russell Kercheval, you know, Jackson was right there at the beginning. I'm trying to think some of the others. There was, you know, it was definitely exploding and taking off. And so it was a real eye-opener. And it was great. We got a lot of great support. Here's a shot of some of the process work for Blue Blood, which Lene and I, we either work together on the artwork or we work separately. Most often we work together on the actual same pieces. Here's another shot of some of the Blue Blood quartz. Very quickly, we learned that jokers were our favorite card to design, to do the artwork and design for. It was always fun to do the jokers. And here is our first run of decks arriving, which was pretty exciting. It was really, you know, before this, everything we created, we made in the studio ourselves and small edition runs. So this was really the first thing that we designed and produced that was, I guess, mass produced, so to speak. I mean, it was I think it was a 2,500 deck run that we had done, but it was really exciting, a little nerve wracking, because once that goes to print, that's it. And there it is, cracked out of the box, our first card deck we received. I think we sold through those in less than 2 months, which was, again, all this was astounding to us. So we were excited about the whole playing card thing, and naturally we wanted to do more. Our second deck, Bohemia, another Kickstarter project, was done with gouache. Lene did all the artwork for Bohemia. And it had sort of a street art meets bohemian sort of style and flair. Here's a shot of how we worked in our studio. This is our office in Chicago, and our mood board and our pinup board helped us really, you know, define and kind of narrow down and focus the artwork for the deck. You know, we'd sit there for hours just figuring out where everything was going. Just being able to see it up like that was great. Here's a shot of the Joker from Bohemia. And there's some more process shot there. It's funny, those pips were painted so large, which we, you know, scale is interesting. Through all of our decks, we've changed scale depending on the medium and, you know, what we're really looking for in terms of the scale of the original artwork. And the pips in Bohemia were very painterly and expressionistic, and having them originally done at that scale really gave us what we were looking for. There's a shot of the pips, the Joker. And on Bohemia, I did all the calligraphy work too. Which brings us to Royal Optic, our third deck. And we, at this point, I think we had decided that we were going to do a 6-deck series and kind of put a number on it. So Royal Optic was our third deck, and it was based on op art. And Royal Optic brought the advent of the diptych card, which was, we always like to try to think of something innovative and unique in the decks we do. At this time we were printing with USPCC, and there was 2 empty slots on the press sheet after printing all the typical cards in the deck. And I think most people used them for ad cards in the past, information, etc. And we had the idea to create a single piece of artwork that spanned across the 2 cards to form a artistic diptych. And we were really happy with that innovation. And so that sort of was the advent of the diptych card when we did Royal Optic. There's a big shot of it. It was also a little bit of a take too on the old decks. Geez, I forget what they were called now. it wasn't a puzzle, but it sort of created one big image. Somebody out there probably knows the name of those decks. I don't know if you do, Bill, but
no.
And here's another process shot. What's that?
No, I didn't know the answer to your question.
Sort of like a transformation.
Oh, you mean a transformation deck where the pips become part of the image?
Well, maybe it's not that. I forget. I don't even. Maybe they didn't even have a name, but there were some vintage decks where they sort of, you put the cards together and created a big single image. I think Charles Pry did a couple of those decks. I think his circus deck was that type of deck. So here's another shot of process for Royal Optic. A lot of the card designers out there, I'm sure they're gonna, they know the process. It's you work through everything, and sometimes you got to take off the head and replace it. So it's another Royal Optic shot. It's a finished piece there. And Royal Optic also really sort of brought into our projects, even though we did some casework in Bohemia. I think it really sort of exploded with Royal Optic, and this gave me a chance to use my past experience with custom furniture building and interior architectural work. And I got to sort of bring in those skills and working in my shop, offering the casework during the Kickstarter projects. And the card stand in particular, I remember at that time, card stands, everyone was sort of trying to figure out a good card stand. And there were a bunch that had sort of been introduced out there. This is what you're seeing here is the final version of the card stand that we came up with, that we still offer, not currently, but it's going to be back for offer. But so that was the final design, refined design. But and then the swivel case for the two decks, which was as simple as it looks. It was an incredibly complex piece to get that to balance perfectly and swivel, and being made out of wood. I think for that project, I might have produced 50 of those. A lot of sanding involved. And I suppose I should mention too, all the casework we offered was all milled from water tanks in Chicago that were built out of redwood and cypress. That was all old growth. And I reclaimed the wood when they take the tanks down. And the trees the wood comes from were anywhere from 300 to 600 years old. They're incredibly large trees. The rings are crazy tight. So that was kind of a unique aspect, I think, of all the casework we did. It was very special wood I was working with. I liked it quite a bit. Here's the case, another case for Royal Optic with screen printing, design from the diptych card on top. Here's a shot of the pieces about to go out. That was kind of a fun case I did. And this was probably the most elaborate, close to the most elaborate piece I did. It was the Friends of the Family box that was introduced during our 5th playing card Kickstarter project, Blue Blood Redo, or Redo. So that was a redo of Blue Blood. We changed some of the quartz and added some new artwork. It was all colored pencil and pastel. And this artwork, Lene and I worked on together. We both had a hand in the artwork, so it was fun. And that led us to Pagan, our 5th deck. I don't know if I said Redo was 4th. Pagan was 5th. And Pagan was a great project. It was an extensive project. the artwork for Pagan was very elaborate. They were oil paintings Lene did on paper that were really, I can say this, I didn't do them, they were incredible. I love the paintings for Pagan, and it was probably our most popular deck, I think, to this day. There's a close-up. So, and Pagan was based on Pagan period, and the costume and clothing worn, etc. Some shot of the quartz. More quartz. The detail of one of the paintings on paper, all sketched out first and then painted. And of course, brought into the computer for file. We called this guy shredded wheat. He's the Jack of Diamonds. And Pagan also introduced for us the hand gilded 24 karat card decks that we offered. This was an idea we had for some time. We had some vintage decks that had been hand, at the time I thought they were hand gilded, they weren't, because I started doing quite a bit of research on gilding. And I believe, someone can correct me on this if I'm wrong, I think gilded decks were foiled starting in about 1920 or so. I dug as deep as I could on the subject. Before that, I'm not sure. So, but anyways, ultimately, we wanted to hand gild decks. So quite a bit of research in the process and a lot of time in the shop figuring out exactly how to gild a deck by hand and be able to not just produce one deck, but be able to offer them. So it was quite the learning process, but we were determined to figure it out. And we're still doing hand gilded decks to this day that we offer with our tarot cards. So I don't think there's too many people out there doing hand gilded decks, but it's an incredible process. The hardest thing is all the prep work. The gilding is putting the cherry on the cake. It's all nerve-wracking, very nerve-wracking. I suppose having done it so much, it's not as much, but you have to pay attention to everything, every step along the way. But yeah, the gilded decks are sort of one of our favorite things to offer, and they've been very well received by the playing card community. Another shot, and there's the final piece. So it's interesting now too that when we offered these, they came as a sort of a solid piece because of the process. You had to break the deck yourself. The decks we've been doing in the last few years come broken already because I've sort of refined some of the process and came up with some new methods that actually make it a little more predictable in the gilding process and just yields a much better finished piece. So they don't come quite like that brick anymore. But I suppose it was fun to kind of crack those. If anyone does it, I don't know. I think a lot of people don't want to crack them. There's another piece of casework here from the Pagan project, 2-deck case. Again, it's the reclaimed old growth redwood with a gilded bottom on these. I think I might have done about 30 of these or so. So the project after Pagan was hotcakes. We wanted to do something fun, sort of quick, loose, and this deck was really an homage to Charles Pry and his the decks that he did, the burlesque sort of Eros, naughty decks of Charles Pry, which are some really great decks. We love that deck, and we really wanted to sort of do our version of it, so to speak. We worked together on this deck. I did the inking when they did the painting, or actually not painting. We used markers on that deck, which was fun. Kind of, it worked its way in well to it being light, and yeah, it's the naughty deck. There's the whole group, or some of them. There's the press sheet with the diptych down in the right-hand corner. And this was an interesting deck too. We weren't sure if USPCC was going to have a problem printing this deck. And we had the artwork, I think, pretty much finished by the time we launched the Kickstarter. And we thought, well, we better send it into them and find out if they're even going to print this or if they're going to have a problem with it. And we sent it into Tiffany, and she turned right around and said, I love it, we're printing it. And they got that deck out fast. So that was a good thing, considering we had already done our Kickstarter. And some of the special offerings from that deck, from the hotcakes. And that down in the left-hand corner is the hot edge, gilded, so to speak, deck, which was a type of shellac, a hot colored shellac finish on the edge of the deck. So that was pretty unique, and that came in the Modesty sleeve box. And our last and sixth deck, UUSI Classic, which we wanted to produce a deck that sort of had a classic feel to it. Again, the artwork was oil paintings by Lene. And there's the press sheet. There's some work in progress. Again, oil on paper. Wanted the figures to be very classic feeling. Here's the king. Shot of the cards. And everything done by hand and brought into the computer. I guess, you know, another thing too is, you know, our decks, one thing we always want to make sure is that they're very, very playable. And I think we, you know, have done a fairly good job with that. We definitely have had a lot of sort of classic style influence in the decks. So, you know, I suppose in some ways they're not too far out there or anything, but you can sort of get a pretty good feel of you know, what our inspiration is. A lot of Renaissance work, medieval, and then some of the really old card decks. Some more of the cases offered, brick box out of the reclaimed cypress. And during the Classic project on Kickstarter, we also offered, this was really unique. I made a 2-deck case, and there was a story behind it. This was one of the water tanks in Chicago that I obtained, and it was on the Swedish American Museum in Chicago, and it had somehow it had frozen during the winter, and they had to replace the tank. So it had a big Swedish flag painted on it. So sort of as an homage to where that wood came from, we offered, I can't remember how many again, maybe 30, 50, 2-deck boxes where when I was creating the boxes, I used the painted exterior of the tank and reworked and inlaid the different colored pieces to form the Swedish flag on the box there. So that was kind of fun. And about every 2 decks, we also did a publication that sort of, you know, talked about the working process with those 2 decks. These were all offered during the Kickstarter projects we did for the playing card decks. And then that was it. That was our Classic was our 6th deck. And what we really wanted to move into, and we had been thinking about for a while, was creating tarot decks. And we loved the history of the tarot decks. We loved all the vintage ones we collected, filled with imagery, and ultimately filled with content. Brute Tarot was our first foray into the tarot deck, and it was a little quirky. It was designed after a French tarot deck, which is it was more of a game than anything else, as opposed to sort of what most people think of a tarot. There was the triptych we offered with that, which was interesting, the way that came out. And we also offered the, I'm not sure what, did I do that little red mark on there?
I don't know where that came from. It might have.
Yeah, I know, it's really bizarre. I thought it was a piece of thread on my screen. Who knows? It's there now. And when we did the Brute Tarot on Kickstarter, you know, we didn't know how it was going to be received, and we thought we should really offer a playing card deck based on the same artwork. So the Brute playing cards was offered along with that project, and you know, we were really grateful. We got a lot of support for the tarot deck, which was great, and the poker deck did well too. So we segued from the Brute Tarot, like I said, it was a little quirky, to the tarot that we had been working on during Brute Tarot and concepting, and that's the Pagan Tarot. And this was really our sort of height of our tarot deck. The Pagan Tarot was based on the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. I'm not sure, I won't go too much into tarot. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with it, but you know, this is what this is the sort of market we're in now, so to speak, and the kind of work we're doing. But it was a wonderful opportunity to really sort of highlight and elaborate on the artwork. And like I said, the content was really interesting to us. So that was really enjoyable and has been enjoyable. So these are some of the artwork from the Pagan Tarot. And, you know, again, the playing card community has been incredibly supportive for this work we're doing in this sort of different genre with the tarot cards and the oracle cards. Everyone's just been incredibly loyal. We're really grateful for it. And obviously it opened up a new market for us too, with people who specifically were already into tarot cards. But it allowed us to really elaborate and I think flourish in terms of the artwork and the content. A few more cards. Some more of the artwork. And there's, again, these were all oil paintings that Lene had done on panel this time. There's the oil painting for the Devil card. And it was challenging, 84 cards, 84 pieces of artwork. So a little different than, you know, doing a poker deck for sure. Huge projects, you know, they take up to a year and a half. There's our death card. And I should really mention that the start of the tarot decks was the start of our relationship with Bill, an expert playing card. At the time, I think we'd started courting each other, and we were trying to figure out what project might be good, and you know, where to start that relationship. And USPCC couldn't produce a tarot deck, so Bill had the ability to do it with expert, and that was Brute Tarot was our first deck with Bill, and excellent craftsmanship and quality in the deck, and that began our relationship with Bill and expert, and haven't looked back once since then.
It's been great.
Which I know everyone that has produced. Yeah, it has been great. It's been seamless, and we couldn't be more grateful for that relationship and the production of the work.
Well, thank you. We feel the same way. We treasure you guys. You're really special.
Thanks, Phil. Some more innovation in the tarot deck this time. Luna cards, which were added due to the amount of space on the press sheets, because the the tarot cards, because of the size, they take 3 press sheets. So it ended up being that there was, I believe, 6 slots left after what would be a normal tarot deck. So we came up with the Seeker card, a special card, and then the 5 Luna cards that show the phases of the moon that are people use when they're using the tarot deck. So that was kind of neat. This was the last of the casework I offered. It was a brick box for the tarots. And again, that's out of the old growth redwood. You really get a good look at the grain there from that wood is just, it's beautiful wood. You don't have to do a whole lot to it to make it shine. And a couple other cases we offered for that. And this was a tarot deck that was sort of based on hotcakes. And this came between our Pagan Tarot and the Supra. The Eros Tarot, another naughty piece, hand painted by Lene. I inked everything. So this was fun. So it's kind of a version of hotcakes in a Marseille Tarot format. Some more of the artwork.
Was that also marker, Peter?
This here? Oh, the Eros was, no, Eros was watercolor.
Okay.
As opposed to hotcakes being marker.
I see.
But it was the same sort of process. I inked all the drawings, and then Lene came in and did all the painting.
I see. Okay.
Here's a shot of her painting. Yeah, paint on paper. And that was the oversized Eros deck, which was fun to do too. But we always wanted to do an oversized deck. It was just the major arcana. And the book that came with Eros, filled with limericks. It's a coloring book. We still have these actually. They're actually pretty fun. And we moved on to Supra, which was our first Oracle deck, which was a natural transition from the tarot. This was all pen and ink by me, another expert produced deck. So I had to dust off my pen and ink skills and make sure I was at the top of my game with this.
How long did
much
it
more
take?
detailed style than what I'd done in the past.
Now, Supra is not fully 84 cards, if I remember.
My God.
It's fewer cards this time, right?
Right. Oracle decks are pretty loose. There's no real format for them as opposed to the tarot. And Supra, I believe, is 52 cards. Trying to think. Yeah, I think it's 52 cards. It's less than a tarot.
Yeah, might be 56.
Yeah.
It was on 2 sheets.
It was more than enough.
28. Yeah.
2 sheets, exactly. So that would be 56, right?
Right.
Yes, I don't think I could have done any more illustrations for it. This took, Supra took probably well over a year.
Incredible.
From beginning to end. Yeah, and you know, that's with, this is actually, it happened right as we moved up here too, which is a big long story I won't go into, but it was an arduous journey that was filled with many things, and we still managed to get Supra done and get it put out. Bill did a great job of printing it. And the books, all the tarot and oracle decks all come with guidebooks, which really got us more into publishing, which we're really enjoying quite a bit. Those we produce here. My brother's a printer down in Lexington, Kentucky. He does a great job of printing these books. So not only is the amount of artwork that's done for these immense, we have to write. Lene does all the writing, all the content writing, and they're big projects to pull off. And like I said, I don't think any of them have been done in under a year or so. And this was the first, not including the Brute, this was the first card deck we did with Bill that we always, you know, since we started printing with Bill, we really wanted to print the Pagan deck with Bill. We just knew it would come out great. So we did a new new color back, and some new artwork in there. It's a new Joker card. And that really, Expert did a great job on that deck too. There's a close up of the artwork. And this is the project we just completed. And it was our last Kickstarter, Materia Prima. It's a concept we came up with ourselves. It's sort of a cross between an oracle and a tarot, and it's based on the periodic table. And it's giving it spiritual content. And so it's a pretty interesting project. We're just about to fulfill it. We just received our decks and books. Again, an excellent job by Expert printing it. I think you get a pretty good shot there of the embossing on the tuck box was excellent. And this deck actually included the foiled cards, 28 foiled cards in the deck. You can see here, that came out great. Excellent registration, really incredible. Again, this was a joint artwork process. I did most of the illustrations, and Lene did a lot of the concepting and compositions. And it's another tarot-sized deck. And I think we're getting close to the grand finale here. I can't see what's next. There's the book for Materia Prima. And I believe, okay, a couple more shots. Let's get through these. Everyone's been waiting patiently.
And this is based on the periodic table, right?
Yeah, exactly. The table of elements.
Right.
And we really, you know, it was a fascinating project to create. And boy, we learned a lot. I was awful in school in chemistry class. I hated the periodic table, but now I find it incredibly fascinating. So we learned a lot, and we, you know, like I said, we really applied what we learned creating the tarot and the oracle to the periodic table and all the elements. So I think it'll be a pretty fascinating read for most people. Real quick, couple of client projects. The Hyde Park deck, and I'm pretty sure that deck that's a USPCC deck. This was for a client in New York, Hyde Park Moldings. It was not our artwork. It was his head artist at his company. It was his artwork, so we worked with that. And then this we did with Bill. This was the Junkanoo deck for Baha Mar Casino in the Bahamas. They asked us to do a deck that celebrated the Junkanoo festivals that are held down there, traditional festivals, sort of like a Mardi Gras with marching bands that compete against each other. So that was pretty interesting. And here we have it. It brings us to the 52 plus Joker deck that we were very honored to create for this year's convention. And there's the tuck. So we were very happy with the way this came out. Again, all the artwork was hand done. I had a really good chance to use a variety of my pen and ink tips and tools I have that I really never some of them I had never used before. So like creating the back of the card and the tuck box, I really got to use some pen tips that I were always curious about. And I was really happy with the way that design came out. And there's the seal and then the gilded inside. So there's a spread of jokers and the ace of spades.
Awesome ace of spades.
We went with a real sort of graphic look. Yeah, and again, you know, this I feel this deck, I think it really shows our interest in sort of vintage decks, which I would say, you know, obviously range. So some very, in one sense, traditional court cards, reverse courts, English court style. And you only use two colors for the deck, black and red. Inspiration for the pip, for the suit symbols, you know, definitely old school style to the suit symbols.
Those are just amazing.
Right. So I think you know, it is definitely, my cat's sitting on my keyboard. Definitely I think it's definitely a UUSI looking deck. Those that do know us and know our work, I would think would agree. We love it. We've played with it already, obviously. And it's a clean play. I really, the black and the red, just using the black and the red remind me of almost like a chess game or a checker set. Mm-hmm. It has a really nice game feel to it. I think it's definitely simplistic, but playing with it is pretty enjoyable. And again, I think it really touches on our love of sort of the classic court card look. You know, we definitely drew inspiration from full figured courts when they were used back beyond 1900, 1800, 1700s. It sort of channeled some of that, even though we did do the reverse.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Terrific. Well, thank you, Peter.
Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too boring.
No, not at all. In fact,
we're not the best at presentation.
No, your presentation was terrific, and it's great to see. I mean, to see some of the paintings. You know, it's astonishing to me with your Pagan Otherworlds tarot deck that those are all paintings. Can you tell us wasn't there an exhibition at an important place recently or in the last year or so? Some of the artwork.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was. I guess it was about a year ago now. It was sort of during the Supra, I think. And it was the first time we've ever showed, and the only time to date we've ever showed any of the artwork from our decks publicly. It was a gallery in Philadelphia that we were approached by the gallery owner through Instagram. She has a big Instagram account. I think, geez, I'm forgetting her name right now. It's been so long. Yeah, it was a show of a select body of work from the Pagan Tarot deck. And that was really nice. Again, we had never shown any work before publicly. So that was great to get feedback for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. And it's the amount of work you folks put into it. And you're really changing things too. From my perspective, an awful lot of people have seen, I guess, especially Pagan Otherworlds, and come and said, we want cards like that. And we want, you made a decision early, because that was, if I'm not mistaken, was that your third tarot you did with us? Did you do Eros before that? I think it was. Eros was the second, right? But when we did the first one, Brute, there was a decision about using smooth stock or embossed because tarots have been traditionally smooth. They've never really been very plain.
Right. It was.
And you chose to use embossed.
No, that's a good point.
want embossed stock for tarot, even though that's not what I'm no tarot expert. There may be decks out there that have been done embossed, but in general, they're not done that way. And you really changed the mind of a lot of people.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. And you made a really good point there. You know, we were entering into a market that had a whole new customer. And the decks that we had seen and collected sort of to research that market, the contemporary decks, the stock ranged all over the place. Most of it was fairly cheap stock, I would say, pretty thin. And then if it wasn't thin, it was almost too thick, where you couldn't, and it was like super thick uncoated paper, which in one sense, it was sort of beautiful as a card, but you still need to shuffle the deck.
Right.
You know, if you're doing a tarot reading, it's not a playing card deck, but you still need to shuffle the deck and pull cards. And deciding to use the stock that we used, the Robusto at the time, was a huge innovation in the tarot market. And people couldn't believe they could actually shuffle their cards now, and that it was still a heavy stock that felt substantial. And that went over huge. So we made a real big impact with the quality of the deck too in the tarot market.
Yeah, it's really interesting how many people I know it's a different world than our club and playing card collectors in general, although there's some crossover. We've had a wonderful talk on early playing cards that are essentially like a tarot deck from a member a couple of years ago. But you're definitely making changes. You know, Pagan has become one of the standard decks, I think, in a way. There are a lot of people that really go to that as their number one favorite tarot deck now.
Yeah, it's done incredibly well for us. And it's, the Pagan Tarot was sort of structurally loosely based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is the most well-known, probably most used tarot deck, which was created in the early 1900s by Pamela Smith Coleman, the most recognizable. And, I feel like we created a modern tarot deck that sort of is able to stand next to that deck that everyone knows. And it continues to do extremely well. So, I think it wasn't such a bad idea for us to use that sort of as a structure in building the Pagan Tarot, in terms of design sort of in the way it feels, and keeping it, again, very playable, very understandable, and not making it too personal, and keeping it almost universal. And I think the artwork for Pagan Tarot, a lot of people are able to identify with that artwork. It's very iconic. It's based on Renaissance painting. And I think it gives a feel that allows people to walk into it and feel comfortable with it and not be too challenged by the artwork itself.
Yep, I agree. It's terrific. So why don't we take some questions? Let's see if people can ask some questions now. I'll try to follow along.
Okay.
Somebody asked the question, classic stock for this deck, PRC or Taiwan print. Which deck are we referring to? Nikolai Tesla. Are you the real Nikolai Tesla?
Wow. You got some pretty important people in here.
Yes, we do. Somebody else, Paige asked, will UUSI produce a poker deck every once in a while?
That's interesting. We really enjoy doing this deck, excuse me, for 52 Joker. I mean, but when Bill first asked us, we were just not in the weeds, but we were overwhelmed with the work we were putting into Materia Prima, the project we just finished. And I was hesitating. Thanks to Lene. Said, sure, we'll do it. And I was like, oh my God, we don't have the time to do it. But
Well,
you
I'm
know, we
sure
really
glad
enjoyed
you
it.
did. I'm
And
sure glad you did, because you're a joy to work with, and the deck is just stellar. We just, well, you know, we were in a good position. The artwork somebody, Nikolai asked which factory made that deck. We made that deck in our new PRC factory, which is state of the art. It's heads and shoulders above any of the other factories we're using as far as the technology we're using. And luckily, that was the plan, because we wouldn't have been able to pull it off. We were a little too tight on time to actually been pulled that off in Taiwan.
yeah.
They wouldn't have cooperated the way for that. So it came out beautifully. Another question is, are you spending 100% of your time on cards, or what percentage would that be?
Right now, yeah, we're spending all our studio time on producing the cards, and like I was mentioning about the publications, on publications too. So we're either, you know, writing or creating artwork, and these projects, you know, the Materia Prima project we just finished, like I said, it was probably definitely our most elaborate project we've done to date. Right now, we're, you know, going to get through the fulfillment for Kickstarter and pre-orders we took, and then, you know, we've already started talking about, you know, what we're going to do next. And but we'll probably take a little bit of a breather. We feel like we've been on the hamster wheel, going just nonstop, and you know, we literally have. We have not. I can't think of a single break we took between any deck from the time we started Blue Blood in 2012.
Wow.
I mean, we've literally have gone from one deck to the next. So, and like I said, the tarot and the oracle decks, these decks we're doing now they're huge projects. They take well over a year to complete, and immense amount of work. And yeah, we're talking about what we're going to do next, but I think we need a little break.
That's completely understandable.
But we'll be around.
David Riley asks, you mentioned Charles Pry. Where did he get his inspiration that then translated some of your deck's art influence? Do you know where he inspired him?
If I'm understanding, Charles Pry, no, I don't. I remember when I first discovered one of his decks, I loved it right away. His decks were all handmade, and they were all limited edition decks. I can't remember what some of the editions were. I think I want to say we have 3 or 4 of them. And they're all sort of really different. And I would almost say they're sort of crudely made. But that's the beauty of the decks. I mean, I know he was pretty sure he was a Belgian artist. I don't know where his inspiration came from himself, but they're wonderful decks. I think you can still come by them, but I don't think they're as affordable as they were when I was buying them.
It's interesting that you've gone from sort of the French style Tarot, I think, was that how it's pronounced, to more or less a regular Rider-Waite style with just the style of what the cards are. But now with Materia Prima, how does that get used?
I think in terms of how it's used a little bit more like an oracle deck, which is oracle decks are very loose. There's no real rules, so to speak, on how to put together an oracle deck. And most of these decks are used or all of them are used for spiritual guidance, I think is the easiest way to put it out there. Oddly enough, we don't do readings. We don't do tarot readings, but we understand the tarot very well. And so I think Materia Prima would be used just like an oracle deck, where either the reader or the individual that's doing a reading for themselves, pulling cards, would simply pull a single card, a series of cards, depending on, there's all different types of spreads that people use when using tarot and oracle. And again, I think most people use it for spiritual guidance, in their life. The tarot is based on the archetypes, on human archetypes. Oracle is, our oracle was based on Jungian philosophy and thought. So that was sort of where the basis of the creation of our oracle deck was. And that's, the oracle deck is more sort of everyday thoughts and words. And when people use these decks, they use them all together. And like I said, they have different spreads they pull. So it gives you contemplation for the day, whether it's to help you get through that day, whether it's you're thinking of sort of a bigger thought or a bigger issue you're dealing with. A lot of people think that tarot decks it's fortune reading or future telling, and it's not really what they are. They're going to tell you something about yourself when you use them, and that's what most people use them for.
Have you noticed
that's what the guidebooks too.
Okay. You started solidly with poker cards and did your first 6-deck series with just poker cards. Did you see any bump going into Brute with trying to cross over those markets? Do you think your customer base is still the same that bought your Bohemian deck and all the early decks, Blue Blood? Do you think those people have moved with you and are buying your new works, or is it a different customer base?
We took with us a really solid customer base, we feel. And yes, we had no idea how the playing card community was going to respond to it, whether they were going to move along with the new work we were doing and still get support. And they've been fantastic. They've been fantastic. And I think it helped a lot too that, it just wasn't one deck we put out in the playing cards. We had a history there with them. And, that's kind of the great thing too about the Kickstarter projects. They really allowed you to tell a story and for people to come along on the ride in the creation of the decks. Kickstarter has been incredible. And it's one thing to design a deck, put it out and just put it on a site for sale. You can, write some things about it, but the Kickstarter projects, I think, really got people to understand, what it was you're doing, a lot about you, the process, etc., and feel like they were a part of it. That helped. I think that really helped us keep our followers and our customers along with this sort of new journey with these new decks that, definitely there's a relation to playing cards for sure, especially, historically. Mm-hmm. But it's been great. We've had great support. A lot of people have come along for the ride in the sort of tarot market there.
Right. Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you again, Peter, and I want you to thank Lene from all of us and from me. And we love you guys, and we really thank you so much for making this deck and doing this presentation. It's just an incredibly great deck, and we're so happy to have it as our club deck. And the only way to get it will be, you'll have some, I think you'll put for sale, but you have to be a club member to get it, and that's really cool for the club. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Lee. And I just want to thank everyone who's supported our work. This was our chance to give back, and hopefully everyone will enjoy the deck. We love it. And thanks for having us.
That's terrific. And then with that, I'll hand it back to Lee. I don't know if he has any final comments for tonight, but I thank everybody who's participated tonight. It's been a great evening.
Thank you, Bill. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves today. What a great day. Day 2, under the belt. Can I get some ones in the chat? How incredible. We started with the president of United States Playing Card Company and went all the way through and finished launching a club deck. Okay. Put some ones in the chat room for Mike Slaughter, Jason McKinistry, all of the table spotlights, Bill Kalush, Kevin Vralick, Alexander Chin, Peter Dunham of UUSI, and all of you. Thank you so much for coming today to our second day of our virtual playing card convention.